Hello, this is Harry Watt, North Carolina State University Wood Products Extension. We're here, the National Firewood Workshop 2021, with a focus on Tennessee. We moved this workshop around the country. We've been in places like New Hampshire, New York, Maryland, North Carolina. We're here at Tennessee focused this year. And next year, we plan to be in Wisconsin in June of next year, and hope people will come there. And that should be an on-site with live demos and a lot of people there from the lake states. This is a national focused workshop. We draw from all around the country. What I have in this section to talk about is used equipment. Where does used equipment fit in for a firewood business, especially a startup? There is a lot of used equipment out there, not just dedicated firewood equipment like processors, but a lot of forestry equipment that is also suitable. So we're going to do a little PowerPoint on used equipment, and we will follow this, and this will be a fairly short video. This is the we are funded by the U.S. Department of Agriculture through the Wood Education Center, Princeton, West Virginia, to promote the use of hardwoods in the eastern U.S., east of the Great Plains. But the National Firewood Workshop, especially here in the Zoom format, is truly national. Our funding comes from them. The Tennessee Division of Forest is our cooperative host. We do have other cooperators. In media, we have Sawmill Magazine. And otherwise, we have the Virginia Division of Forestry and the North Carolina Forest Service. We do have some notices to mention here. We are funded by the U.S. Forest Service. Our grant number is listed here on the slide. If there's any issues that someone feels like they're not properly interacted here by us, then you can complain to the U.S. Department of Agriculture, the U.S. Forest Service, the Wood Education Center, and North Carolina State University. We don't discriminate in any way, shape, or form. Buying and selling used equipment is really important. For many startup business, it's the affordable way to get into it. You catch some equipment that's been used, but it isn't wore out, and you use it to start your business. You do have to be careful depending on how skilled you are or your employees are in mechanical things. And if you're not good at maintaining gasoline engines and gearboxes and hydraulic pumps and engines and things like forklifts and skid steers and trucks, you really need to think about how you're going to handle those things, because in a firewood operation, everything breaks at some point in time, and preventative maintenance is something we do the other day. But we do have to understand, in the world of used equipment, there's several what I would call the major categories. If you go buy a piece of equipment and you're getting it on the as is, where is platform, then it may not run, it may have a problem, you don't know. It's always good if you can see the piece of equipment running before you buy it, or you have a chance to fire it up and just basically see whether it can do what it's supposed to do. A better quality, but more expensive, is the recondition. This is where someone of mechanical skills has gone through and has ensured that this is now a proper running machine. And the kind of things you would do if you've got hydraulic seals that are leaking, they get fixed. You got bad bearings, they get fixed, and so forth. Electrical wires have been checked out that everything works, all the bells and whistles and all the basics. And then you have the with warranty. And this is one where whoever's selling it is going to stand behind it for repairs and materials for a reasonable length of time, as long as it's not abused. So when you're buying something, there's a lot of places to get the used equipment, and based on the negotiations you have when you buy it depends on really how good it is and whether any repairs are on you or they're covered by a warranty. Auctions is a very popular place where people can get forestry and firewood equipment. If you got the high bid, buddy, it's yours. The trend on online auctions is, if you're not careful, you're buying things that you haven't seen them running. It can be in a distant location. You can buy equipment anywhere in the U.S. and Canada very easily online. You do have to pay attention to the closing day to be a top bidder. A lot of bids don't really get interesting the last hour or two when people start getting in on it. And you do have to be careful. It is exciting. And if you're not careful, you could pay too much for what you're getting, especially if you don't know what you're getting. Typically, most people will not want to pay but a fraction of what the new value of a piece of equipment is because of all the cost it goes into getting a piece of equipment at an auction. Not only do you have to pay what your winning bid is, you have to pay any taxes. You've got to pay a loading charge. You may pay a buyer's premium. You may have to pay a rigger if it's a big, heavy piece of equipment to come get it for you and move it. And then you've got to pay for the transportation, and there could be some insurance there. If you're going to haul a piece of equipment down a highway and it's not insured and something bad happens, you maybe just lost this piece of equipment and it's yours because you were the high bidder. The forestry equipment is far more common out there in the world than firewood equipment. And some of it overlaps, and the kind of things that overlaps, we'll go into that in a minute, but here's 3 websites that you can find. There's others: lumbermanonline.com, thefirewoodtrader.com, and Forestry Trader. And these are sites that take ads. So somebody is listing their piece of equipment for sale on these websites. So it's a good place. A lot of times there's photos, or maybe you can go to the website for these listing services and get photos from a lot of different directions, and it'll commonly have the specs of what's the horsepower and whatever's the relative facts about it. So this is a good way to find equipment. Now, typically this is as is, where is equipment. You're not buying this from a dealer, you're buying it from an individual most of the time. Now, Craigslist is an interesting place, and I have seen firewood equipment on Craigslist. Now, Craigslist is a good general purpose listing service. It's free and it's nationwide, and that's the positive. You can be a buyer, you can put a want on there. If you want a wood splitter or whatever, skid steer, you may find it on Craigslist. What's good about it, it's got a lot of flexibility. You can put a lot of photos on it. You can write the description of what it is, and so forth. And if you're selling, you can delist it when you sell it. So it's easy to get it off of there. You don't sell it the first week and the ad stays on for another 2 months or whatever. And you can request it only email contacts. If you don't want people calling you on the phone, you don't have to. You can get email. So Craigslist is a viable place to look for firewood equipment, and you can just look in your local area, or you could pick any place in the country. Craigslist goes nationwide. Now, on the right is an interesting trailer here, and that is a grapple trailer, and it's sort of a forestry piece of equipment that is useful for arborists, and it's useful for firewood people that are running smaller operations. You know, if you're consuming 5 truckloads of firewood a day, it would come in on a big truck. But this is great to carry in the woods and do those pre-commercial thinnings, or some kind of a stand improvement thinning to get wood out of the woods that suits the firewood industry. So what's great about this is the grapple will pick up each of those logs one at a time. Those tandem trailer axles can carry the load that you see there. It's a good thing to have in urbans, and especially small tracts that need some wood removed. Another place to get used equipment, surprisingly, you may think, is the new equipment manufacturers. And most of the people that are making new firewood equipment, processors, splitters, etc., they have some used unit. They may have taken in trade, they maybe bought them somewhere. For some reason, they have a used piece of equipment and they want to sell. So the good thing about them is you would expect they would have the best mechanics. So if they've gone through a piece of used equipment that they made, they should have all the parts, all the supplies, all the knowledge to really get it back up into good condition. They may offer a warranty period, and they may offer financing. So when you're looking at used equipment, don't forget about the new equipment people, because they may be able to meet your needs. The forestry dealers is another group, and all across the country, there are forestry equipment people. And there are companies like John Deere and Caterpillar that make forestry equipment. But there's a whole slew of other people that make forest equipment. And some of these are big industrial dealers, and some of them are small people like tractor dealers. Sometimes tractor dealers carry winches and other forestry equipment like grapples and so forth that's of interest. So if you're looking for used equipment, these dealers typically have used equipment. They take pieces on trade. They may go to an auction. If they get a good deal, they'll buy something. They have a mix of machines based on what they have. They don't carry the full product line like a new dealer would. They've got this, that they do have. Now, they may be able to offer financing also. And if you look at the photo there, that is a mobile grapple. And that's a great machine to have in a wood yard. Is the grapple can unload trucks in one part of the yard, reload trucks in another. It's self-propelled, and it has the stabilizing feet there, so it's a safe machine to run. The operator's there, and it swivels 360. So it's a diesel-powered machine. So as you're growing your business, if you're not familiar with all the forestry equipment, there are forestry shows across the U.S. They'll be opening back up this summer in 2021. So if you go to those, you'll see some things you haven't seen. If you look on the internet and YouTube, you'll see things you haven't seen. Here's some more examples of what industry equipment is out there from forestry that we can borrow. The photo there in the center is a log deck. And if you have a processor, most of those decks are limited. You can only put so long of a deck on a processor because it's got a set of wheels that's got to go down the highway. So if you're a serious firewood producer, you really need to have something like this, which is a log deck. And it has a gearbox, an electric motor if it's in a permanent site, which it should be. And it will advance the logs. The whole idea is the processor deck is so short, usually you can put just a few number of logs on there. These decks here can be extremely long, and I've seen them, 60 feet long, where you could put a whole truckload of logs on one. And the idea is you keep the processor always loaded with logs, and they don't stop the processor to reload the logs. Another really useful machine is the bucking saw. If you have a stationary grapple handling your firewood that's unloading trucks and putting wood on the deck, the bucking saw is a wonderful machine that you use to buck crooked logs. The problem that crooked logs give the processor is feeding. It will twist around, roll around. The operator has to stop and go get the cant hook and twist and all this crap. If you have a stationary grapple in a hydraulic system, it runs the bucking saw, and you can cut the log as you need it to straighten out this crooked log. Conveyors are also extremely useful. The forest industry is full of them, whether it's an auction or a used equipment location. They'll typically have a wide variety of conveyors. To me, the really useful one that we need to see a lot more in the firewood industry is the powered pivot conveyors. Now, what that is, the conveyor has a pivot at the processor, and the two wheels that hold up the conveyor are powered by hydraulics or electric power, and they can rotate right and left. And that allows you to fill up a dump truck or a trailer or make a pile without having to stop the processor to move the trailer, move the truck, or do something, get the pile out of the way. So conveyors, there's a lot of them out there, and they're generally affordable. There's a lot of useful trucks out there, whether it's a dump truck, sideboard truck, whatever you need for firewood and logs, a lot of trucks. There's a huge variety of lifts, skidders, skid steers, etc. Skid steers are really nice because you can put attachments on it, like you can put processors that run on the skid steers. There's some that have long splitting. If you've got logs or big logs, you can do something with. If you look in the lower photo here, here's a skid steer with a grapple. So there's a lot of options available when it comes to looking at used equipment from the Firewood dealer network. But overall, I just wanted to mention to everybody that on used equipment, there's a lot out there. You can probably find what you want if you look. Condition is a big deal. You don't want to find something that's wore out. If you're not mechanical, take somebody with you that is. If you can crank it up, see it run. People like dealers have somebody on staff to do maintenance, and usually they'll clean it up and dress it up because they want top dollar. So, you know, the best bargains is finding something that really is good value. You know, what it costs, what do you get? You can spend money and get absolutely nothing, but you can also find something that really will benefit your business. So from the National Firewood Workshop 2021, this has been great, and I hope you catch the next video. Thank you.